Well, hello everybody. I am Matthew Taylor. It is 2 o'clock Mountain Time on Wednesday, and that means one thing. It is time for Make Stories Matter, which is my little Facebook Live moment where we chat about stories and give you a little idea on some stuff that might help you your storytelling, or just maybe might be of interest to you. We'll see. Um, and today's topic is change how people feel. And it's about neurotransmitters, which are known kind of as kind of the body's chemical messengers. And so, what we like to do is not just look sometimes at stories themselves and the structures and how stories work, but really look at some of the science that is behind this power of story. And the science side is interesting because, of course, it is just the way it is. And so it takes out some of that worry that people have about trying to use stories because they think, well, they don't always work, or but it's like, nah, they work the same way all the time. And so this is one of those little sciencey ones because we have these crazy great kind of chemicals in our brains. And so the neurotransmitters um, they're basically the molecules that are used by the nervous system to transmit messages from neurons to neurons, or the neurons to muscles. And so we know that we have electricity in our bodies. And we have about 20 watts ish, and it takes about 13 or so, 14, they say, to operate the brain. But we also have chemicals in our brain because sometimes this electricity kind of gets changed into a chemical briefly. And so these chemicals affect how we feel. So this whole idea is, think about when you've watched a movie, or somebody's shared a story with you, or you've read a book, and how your mood changes. Now, these chemicals are always going on. I mean, it's always happening. It's just that sometimes we get a burst of them. We'll have something that's a little bit more emotional that we hear, and it might make you sad, it might make you happy, it might make you jealous. I mean, one of these things. But it's this surge of them that can happen, and that we sense it. But know that it's happening all the time. And some are kind of, I've heard people describe them as blissful, or they're the happy neurotransmitters, and then some are the bad ones. And so let's just go through a few of those little ones. So on the happy side, now there's tons of these ones. There's over 100 that they've recognized, but they're kind of the usual ones that are most well known. And so this is the ones people really chat about a lot, and with good reason, really. One is oxytocin. And oxytocin is connected with trust and bonding, feeling more kind of human, and empathy, and pieces like this. It's kind of this when you have warm, fuzzy feelings, oxytocin is often the one that's getting kind of driven out in force. And then there's also, along with that one, another one that is going to be right up there with it is going to be endorphins. And the endorphins are like these feelings of euphoria, and it reduces stress, and it makes you more relaxed. And so that's another one that people kind of ones that are released when people are having sex and things like that. And so it's like, whoa, gotta love those. And then there's another one that kind of falls in between these ones, which is dopamine. And dopamine is a little different in the sense that it's more connected with things like focus and motivation and memory, and kind of pleasure anticipation is another part for it. And also pleasure reward. It kind of rewards us. So a good way of thinking about dopamine, if you ever have a to-do list, and when you cross something off, it makes you feel good and different. And what happens is that would be one of the ones where dopamine is released. And I'm a big list taker. I'm not very good at doing things on my list, but at least if I write them down, I have a chance that they might get done. But by golly, when I go and cross one off, I'm like, whoa, look at me. I'm completely productive today. I've crossed one thing off my list. So it's that little bump of dopamine that kind of gives you that. So with story, if you think about it, then if the choice of your story will actually affect how the people can feel. And so you can make people feel better, or you can make people feel worse, because there are a few of these neurotransmitters that are connected on the other side. One of which would be cortisol, and another one would be adrenaline. Now, of course, we think of adrenaline as being quite good, or some people like this rush of adrenaline. But really, with the combination of them, what they're really known as is the body's stress hormones. And so they're usually released quite often when you're scared, or you get nervous or anxious or shocked. And they're connected with kind of anxiety, intolerance, irritability sometimes, if you're critical or uncreative. And decision making can be affected in a more negative way. And your memory can be kind of impaired by some of these. It kind of covers up. So if you think about stories that are happier, or can make people feel a little bit better. I'm interested. I've just gone very fuzzy. You probably have seen, and I've just come back. I hadn't done that before, but I must have moved in the wrong way at one moment. So if I share a story about my daughter Maitland and us going skiing at Christmas, and the fun that we have, and not that she's a big skier, and then my son Alistair joined us as well, and Susan, and all of us have this tradition of going skiing on Christmas Day, mainly because you open all your presents and then you're done, and we're like, what do you do? And so we decided, well, not many people are going to be skiing, and we're not going to have to battle the traffic up to Loveland, and so we zoom up and we go and do it, and having the four of us, and I'm a big skier. But Susan and Maitland and Alistair, it's the one time of the year they ski. But the fun that we have, even if we just do one run, and the laughter and the smiles on the way up, and just being outside, and usually it's dumping snow and it's not great conditions, and we do one run, but we have this time together that is so unbelievably precious with us. And we all bundle up and they rent skis, and it is just one of those things that brings me so much joy. But just sharing a moment like that helps the listener kind of suddenly not just reveal who I am and as a family, but this idea of bonding and fun and love and laughter and all of these pieces. And so it's releasing those neurotransmitters that will lead your audience to hear those. Now, if on the other hand I share a moment, a story, that might be, for instance, about my dear friend Art, who I grew up in Crested Butte with, and we skied every day and we biked every day, and he was just one of the most vital and most wonderful people I ever knew, strong as an ox, and just, so beautiful and fun. And we were planning, this was many years ago, we were planning a bike trip. I'd moved to Denver, and so we didn't really see each other very much. And I called his phone to plan these last bits of details, and Art didn't answer the phone. It was Kate, his longtime partner, and I could tell instantly that something dreadful had happened because of the tone of her voice when she was answering the phone. And very quickly she informed me that Art had had a bad fall on a building site and was in a helicopter for Flight for Life and being flown to St. Mary's Hospital out in Grand Junction, in which he remained there for 2-3 days in a coma and then eventually passed. And the sudden shock for it just chilled me. I mean, even now, all these years later, I can just feel the hairs on my arms going up, and just that having him just not being able to call or see or even just knowing that it existed was crippling and so difficult. And the likelihood is the listener has changed from the first story to the second story. And so we have this ability to influence how people feel. And you'll know how sometimes there are people probably in your life that when they walk in to a room, everybody just gets happy because they're upbeat and positive, and most of the things that they will relay or talk about will be upbeat and positive. And then there are sometimes people that will kind of suck the energy out of the room. And so you have the choice of talking about sucking the energy. You may hear a very old cat squawking in the background. Not that IKEA sucks the energy out of any room at all, but she really thinks she wants to get outside, even though it's a horrible day here in Colorado. Far more like a British day. It's overcast and kind of drizzly and not quite snowing. Um, but so we have this choice of what and when we deliver them, and it's an incredibly powerful choice to be able to think about. Um, so here is a task that you might kind of have fun doing, which is if you go online there and type in best buds Budweiser commercial. It is something that I use a lot in workshops because it was a Budweiser commercial that was done for the Super Bowl, and it's kind of disappointing for me because the Super Bowl was many years ago, or quite a few years ago, and it aired late in the Super Bowl, and it was one of those absolutely one-sided Super Bowls. So it aired to a very small audience because so many people had tuned out or gone off and then were done. And sadly, it was when the Seattle Seahawks crushed the Denver Broncos. And living in Denver and in Colorado pretty much the whole time I've been in America for 37 years, I am a bit of a Bronco fan. And so it was painful for me to have to keep watching this commercial because it reminded me each time. But the commercial is, I think, one of the most beautifully put together stories. And just have to watch it. It's only 57 seconds long when you take out, the little Budweiser bit at the beginning and the end. And there is this unbelievable change in 57 seconds for people. And so I don't want to kind of give you kind of what the commercial necessarily is about, because I think it would be kind of a fun exercise for you to just go see it. But what we're talking about is what is happening to you physically when you watch that. It is a remarkable difference. You are changed. And then you can watch it a second time and it happens again. You'll get this other, and really the oxytocin is probably the largest thing, which is just getting flooded through you to give you this unbelievable difference. And I can remember once showing it at a law office in when I was doing a workshop for them in Denver, and it was a pretty straight-laced kind of law office, and people were pretty serious, and it was a little bit more male-orientated. So and I just showed this thing, and my first thing I'll ask is, how do you feel? And there was complete silence, and then somebody was like, just fine, thank you very much. And it was like, it does bring you to kind of tears, in this kind of happy tears as opposed to sad tears. So I would definitely recommend having a little glance at it. Just bring it up. It's as I said, it's a minute long. But not only is there oxytocin going, there's a lot when I talked about that reward neurotransmitter, which is dopamine. That's happening a bunch as well, because when you're on a story arc, and there is this beautiful arc in this story, even though it's brilliantly put together, the rule of three runs through there as well, and all these things we are subconsciously really wired to understand and get. And so we're solving things as we go, and each time we do it, we pat ourselves on the back, and each time we do that, a little bit of dopamine goes bloop, out it goes. And so you've got all of this magical kind of chemicals just combining and growing and growing and growing. And at the end of 57 seconds, you are so different from the beginning. So hopefully that'll encourage you to actually go and check it out. But remember, these are happening all the time. So yes, it's rare to get that massive amount, but we are always floating between them. And it's another moment where you have complete control on the information you deliver and how you can affect your audience, which is kind of an exciting one to do it. Even if you think of it just as, let's make people a little happier at a time such as now and the last couple of years, where so many people are not laughing or are not so happy or not seeing the brighter side. And we can help every single time by what it is we choose to tell. So that gives you a little bit about neurotransmitters, and of course we can delve deeper, and I would love to chat with you about it in greater detail, or how we can incorporate that to help businesses or just individuals. And but we can also chat about it. I have a Facebook group that is thoroughly fun storytelling, and I'd love you to kind of join that. And there's chats and different like-minded people that we can get together and chat about those. These Facebook Lives are also on my YouTube channel, which is Matthew Taylor Stories. And so you can kind of look at odd ones and zip back and forth through those, so you can check that out, or just get a hold of me at matthew@matthewtaylor.com, the website being matthewtaylor.com. So that is another little Wednesday Facebook Live of Make Stories Matter with me, Matthew Taylor. Thanks so much for joining us and chatting about that, and I will see you next Wednesday at 2 o'clock Mountain Time. So have an awesome rest of your day. Cheers.